They didn't break up with a fight. They broke up with a phrase no one had heard before: conscious uncoupling. But what really ended the marriage of Hollywood's golden girl and Coldplay's frontman? In a world where most celebrity splits turn ugly fast, Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin did something totally unexpected. They didn't slam each other in interviews. They didn't fight over custody. Instead, they redefined what a breakup could be and confused half the internet in the process. This is not just a story about a Hollywood divorce. It's about two people who loved each other enough to walk away, and how that decision changed them forever. Keep watching to find out why their picture-perfect marriage came to an end, what conscious uncoupling really means, and how their split may be one of the most mature in celebrity history.
Before we continue, make sure to subscribe.
Because here at Union Stories, we dive deep into celebrity drama, mystery, and Hollywood's biggest untold secrets.
Let's rewind to the beginning. It was 2002. Backstage after a Coldplay concert, Gwyneth Paltrow, still grieving her father's death, met Chris Martin, and boom, just over a year later, they were married in a private ceremony in California. No paparazzi, no media circus, just love. They weren't Hollywood's loudest couple, but they were one of its most intriguing. In 2004, they welcomed their daughter, Apple. In 2006, their son Moses was born. For more than a decade, they kept things quiet. No red carpets, no couple interviews, just two mega-famous people trying to live a normal life. But behind the closed doors, something was shifting. In a deeply personal essay Gwyneth wrote in 2020 for British Vogue, she described a turning point. It was her 38th birthday, a trip to Tuscany, the kind of romantic getaway that should have felt like a dream. But instead, she felt empty. My ex-husband and I sat at lunch, and I knew it was over. No big fight, no cheating scandal, just a slow-growing feeling that they were no longer meant to be partners. She described a kind of unrest in their marriage. Not hatred, not anger, just misalignment. They were evolving into different people, and love alone wasn't enough. They still cared for each other, deeply, but something had shifted. The romance was gone. They were more like friends raising children than lovers building a life. But they didn't call it quits right away. They tried everything: therapy, conversations, space, because they didn't want to fail, especially not with two kids in the picture. Both Gwyneth and Chris came from families where divorce was messy, emotional, and long-lasting. They wanted something better for Apple and Moses. Still, the truth couldn't be ignored forever. And in March 2014, they announced their split on Gwyneth's wellness site, Goop, with two words that would go viral overnight: conscious uncoupling. People laughed. The internet roasted them for sounding too woke or too Hollywood. But there was more depth behind the term than people realized. It was actually suggested by their therapist, a way to help people separate without destroying each other in the process, a way to break up without breaking the family. Instead of treating divorce like a failure, they treated it like a transformation, not the end of a family, just a different version of it. And that decision, it wasn't easy. In fact, Gwyneth admitted she didn't even want the divorce, but deep down, she knew it was right. Chris Martin wasn't exactly throwing Coldplay albums at the wall, but he wasn't okay either. He spiraled into a depression after the split. In a 2016 interview, he admitted feeling completely lost and worthless. He leaned into music. He read spiritual books. He spent time alone, healing. But through it all, he never lashed out, never blamed Gwyneth, because even through the sadness, they were still a team. One major reason the relationship stopped working, their lives started pulling in opposite directions. Chris was touring the world with Coldplay, constantly on the move. Gwyneth was diving headfirst into her Goop empire, a growing business with a big future. They had different dreams, different schedules, and different ways of living. Love wasn't the issue. Logistics were. And let's be real, marriage is hard enough. Add fame, kids, millions of fans, and zero privacy, that's next level. But here's the part that shocks people. Even after the divorce, they kept vacationing together. Gwyneth's new husband, Brad Falchuk, he hangs out with Chris. Chris's ex, Dakota Johnson, she's been to family dinners with them. It sounds wild, but for them, it works, because they never stop putting their kids first. Gwyneth calls Chris like a brother. They still celebrate holidays together, still share parenting responsibilities like a team. Most divorces are messy, filled with pain and bitterness. But what if they didn't have to be? What if, like Gwyneth and Chris, we saw the end of a relationship as a change, not a failure? They took a term that sounded like a joke and turned it into a lifestyle. And now they're closer than ever, just not as husband and wife. In her own words, Gwyneth says the divorce helped her grow and ultimately led her to the right partner. It's not a story about a couple falling apart. It's about a couple growing in different directions and choosing to respect that instead of fighting it. In a world obsessed with scandal and drama, Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin showed us another path, one with compassion, with maturity, and most importantly, with love. Their story proves that not all breakups have to break people. Sometimes, ending a marriage is the most loving thing you can do. Tap the next video to hear why Chris Martin let Dakota Johnson go. What is the reason behind their breakup? And subscribe to Union Stories for more.